Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is Towergate day number 925, Sunday, October the 13th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, don't forget today to get your votes in for Dumbass of the Week. Be sure and put that into your vote into the comments section of today's video and try to get your votes in by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday evening, and I'll do my best to make sure all the votes are counted. Very, very close competition last week. It came down to Pelosi and Schiff, and it was a 1-point victory, just a 1-point victory. Very, very close, so your votes definitely count. And a lot of good candidates this week, and a lot of the same candidates, by the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the news of the day. Before I do, I just want to kind of piggyback off of something that we talked about yesterday that had quite a few comments in the comments section. More news has broke about the original story. So I just wanted to talk about that for a minute. So yesterday, what happened, kind of a timeline of events. I got home from work around 5 or 5:30. I went through my normal list of sites that I go to collect information, and I stumbled onto the story about the resignation of Shepard Smith, Fox News. And they had a little video clip there, and I couldn't tolerate watching the whole clip, but I watched a few seconds of the clip and read the byline, which is that he decided to leave Fox News. And originally what he said was that he had decided to leave. He didn't really say why. He said that they asked him not to leave, to stay on, but he decided, no, I want to go, and they said, okay, fine, and that was it. So that's the original story, and there was no other stories at the time when I wrote that down and did my video a couple hours later. Now, later in the evening, other stories did come out. People starting to say, well, Shepard Smith was probably forced out, that he was fired. Then, of course, we had the story that came out a little while later that Barr, Attorney General Barr, had apparently met with Rupert Murdoch 2 days prior, who, of course, is the majority owner of Fox News Corp. So people began to speculate that maybe something was going on there. The meeting between Barr and Murdoch had something to do with Shep Smith being either A, fired, or B, resigning, one of the two. So now we've had about 24 hours to let the smoke clear. And so at this time, as I'm coming to you at this time, Shepard Smith's spokesperson is continuing to double down on what Shepard Smith said, which is that it was his choice to leave. He was not fired. They did ask him not to leave, to stay on, and he declined. He wanted to leave. So that's the story. We've also had other people writing stories that people close to Shepard Smith are saying that this is something he's been thinking about for several months, because he's had these quarrels with other people there at Fox, specifically Tucker Carlson. There's one story that suggested that Shepard Smith had gone to Fox management and said, hey, either it's me or Tucker Carlson. One of us two has to go. And apparently they said, well, he's got better ratings than you do. So I guess you have to go. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just one of the stories. There's also another story out there that says that Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity went to management and said, hey, either you get rid of Shepard Smith or we're going to go. I don't believe really any of these scenarios, because that's not the way these people do things. I mean, they all have their own individual contracts with Fox. They have their own shows. They can say what they want. And it doesn't sound like something Tucker or Sean would do. Tucker and Sean take care of themselves. They do their own shows. They have their own thoughts. They have their own contracts. They're not connected to Shep Smith. He can say whatever he wants. He has his own contract. He is what he is. His ratings are what they are, and the same with them. So I don't know if I believe any of these rumors, but I do believe that Shepard Smith, probably one of the main reasons he did leave, was because, he's at a network where most of the people like Trump. So he's kind of an outcast, kind of a social outcast. He would probably be happier over at CNN or MSNBC, and they would love to have him, by the way. So maybe he thinks he can make more money there. His ratings are not that good. Maybe he thinks that he was going to be fired anyway, or something like that, and he'd rather leave on his own terms than stick around and get fired. So who knows all the motivations, but I think it probably has something a lot more to do with the fact that Shep Smith just was not happy at Fox News. Now, as far as Barr and his meeting with Murdoch, that having something to do with it, I would say that's probably, it's possible, but I would put that, as fairly low probability. I have a rough time believing that Barr would go to Murdoch and say, hey, you got this anti-Trump journalist over there at Fox, you got to fire him. And Murdoch says, okay. I don't think that sounds right to me. But now it could be there's something else. It could be that Barr and Durham have discovered something in their investigation, and in that investigation, or possibly it's in the Horowitz investigation, and the FISA is coming out shortly, within the next week or two, is what we're being told. Maybe there is something that Barr knows that is either in the Horowitz report or has been uncovered in the Durham investigation that is going to be embarrassing to Fox News, and it has to do with something that Shepard Smith may have been involved in. Now, if Barr is giving Murdoch a heads up and saying, hey, just to let you know, we're in this investigation and we're discovering some things. You got someone at your network, specifically Shepard Smith, who's involved in some things which are going to be possibly embarrassing, maybe even criminal, but you may want to consider not renewing his contract because he's going to embarrass you. That's a possibility, I think. But even that, I think, is a fairly low probability, but it's possible. I think what's more interesting to me is not so much the Shepard Smith thing. I mean, I think that could be coincidental. Probably is coincidental, I think, just timing. But I'm far more interested in just the fact that Barr met Murdoch. Now, that's interesting to me. The fact that Shepard Smith was fired within 2 days of that, I think is probably more coincidental than anything else. I would say 90% coincidental, 10% possibility of something else. That's just my gut feeling. But I'm far more interested in Barr meeting with Murdoch. Now, there's two questions that we have to ask ourselves here to determine whether or not there's something we should be very interested in. Number one, did they meet because they're good friends, have been friends for years, and maybe just wanted to catch up? Or did they meet because it has something to do with something Barr is dealing with? It has something to do with the government or some investigation or something like that. That would be the main question for me. Was it just a friendly meeting because Barr and Murdoch are friends? Because if they're just friends and they just got together for a friendly chat to catch up because they're friends, then there's nothing to look at here. It's just a couple guys got together who are friends. One just happens to be the Attorney General and the other happens to be the majority owner of News Corp. That's not a story then. It's just two friends getting together for lunch or whatever. So there's no story here. But I don't think that's the case. And I don't think that's the case because both of their spokespersons have been asked if their meeting had anything to do with the Shepard Smith firing. And both of them have said basically no comment. So their spokespeople are not commenting. And that means that they just don't want to talk about the issue at all. It doesn't mean that they did have something to do with Shep Smith being fired. It just means that they really don't want to talk about this, which means it's probably not just a friendly thing. Otherwise, they just would have come out and said, because now people will keep asking about it. It'll become kind of something people are asking about. It'll become a little bit of a mystery, maybe a bit of a conspiracy theory, whatever. So they didn't put it to bed. If it was just those two were friends and they got together for lunch or something, then I think both of their spokespeople would have said, oh, it was nothing. Barr and Durham have known each other for years. They're good friends. They just got together for lunch. There's nothing really to look at here. It's just there was no discussion of government or investigations or anything like that, business or anything like that. It's just two old friends getting together for lunch. But that's not what their spokespeople said. Their spokespeople came out and said no comment. Both of them. So that tells me that there's something more than just friends. Maybe they're not even friends. Maybe they've never met before. I don't know. They both are conservatives. They run in conservative circles, have been since the late 80s at least, since, Murdoch got his network going. And I think that they were both friends of Reagan, and so therefore it's possible that those two have met before. Whether or not they're friends, they regularly meet, occasionally meet, I don't know. I really don't know, but I get the gut feeling of two things. Number one, that the Shep Smith firing probably not related to the meeting, but could be, but probably not. But on the other hand, the meeting between Barr and Murdoch itself probably, more than likely, has a lot to do with something about the investigation, the coup, something. And it was not just a friendly lunch with a couple of good friends. So if it is the former, and it's Barr got together with Murdoch to discuss something of a serious nature, what might that be? What might that be? Well, I'll give you my thoughts on a couple things. Barr and Durham and Murdoch and no doubt many other people watching this coup as it continues. It's been going on now for 3 years. It continues. My guess is that Barr and Murdoch are both have concerns, along with many other people. Because if the Dems keep pushing and pushing and pushing, they got the whole left-wing media on their side. They could, with the help of the media, get enough people to buy into what they're selling that they could actually force an impeachment, cost an impeachment, or do enough damage to the president that they essentially cost him a second term. They've already practically ruined his first term. He really has had his first term robbed from him, and I think people like Barr and Murdoch, many of you probably feel like Trump's been robbed of being able to fully exercise his presidency as a duly elected president because of the coup effort. But it continues. It doesn't end. And at some point, if they keep on going with all the help they're getting from the media, they very well could have some success. I think that probably concerns Barr. And I think it's possible that with the FISA report coming out, the Horowitz report coming out, that Barr knows that the left-wing media and the Democrats have already put together a plan to question the integrity of the Horowitz report, to question Barr's integrity, to question Trump's integrity, to question everything, probably to ignore most of it, spin a lot of it, lie about a lot of things. In other words, I think Barr understands, and Murdoch understands, that the Democrats are not going to fairly represent what is in Horowitz's FISA report. They're going to do everything they can to try to cover up whatever hard truths may be there, to spin as much as they can, and to try to attack the messengers. And that would probably include Horowitz at this point, even though he's a Obama appointee and a Democrat, and his wife is very popular in Washington, travels in very elite Democrat circles. She's some sort of a legal attache for CNN. So a lot of Democratic connections, but that doesn't matter under the particular circumstances. Horowitz, if he puts out a report that says things that are bad about Democrats or what have you, or could be harmful to Democrats, they're going to attack him. Right along with Barr, Durham, Trump, me, you, everybody else, Fox News, all the messengers. And I think that gives Barr a lot of concern. So when you have people like Shepard Smith or people on Fox News who are kind of joining with MSNBC, CNN, and all the left-wing outlets, I think that may concern Barr, because his feelings maybe are that Fox News is the only voice out there, really, in the so-called kind of major media. He's not talking about a bunch of YouTubers. He's talking about, shows that get 2, 3, 4 million viewers, like big cable shows or big network news programs. I think Barr is very concerned that the FISA abuse report coming out by Horowitz, or even his own investigation with Durham, that the left wing, along with their allies in the media, have enough power that they could do serious damage to trying to expose the truth about what happened. And I think that may be a concern that Barr has. So maybe it was just a conversation with Barr telling Murdoch, hey, we're massively outnumbered here. We got 3 networks, we got 2 or 3 cable stations, we got the New York Times, the Washington Post, we got thousands of blog sites and everything else, who are all going to try to discredit the Horowitz report. They're going to try to discredit what we do in our investigation. They're trying to discredit Fox News or whatever. And I think it may have just been a conversation for a strategy on how to make sure that Fox News does a good job of telling the truth about the Horowitz report and whatever they come up with in Durham investigation. And Barr may have, made his concerns known with Murdoch about the fact that there are some anti-Trumpers on your network, and you have been covering some anti-Trump, and you did run that poll the other day showing that 50.1% of the people support impeaching Trump, and that I think maybe Barr wants Murdoch to keep the situation in perspective as to how important it is that Fox News not get sucked into the liberal narrative, which could lead to the Democrats taking out a president. And keep in mind, Barr already knows at this point a lot about the coup, and he may have even told Murdoch, hey, look, we're in this investigation, as you know. I've read through the Horowitz report. It's fairly damning. We've got a lot more evidence. There's a lot of things coming, and but it takes time to do these investigations. And if, in fact, the Democrats and the left wing are successful at running this president out, driving this president out, before we can get the truth out, it will be a great miscarriage of justice. And so we have to do everything we can to make sure that we can hold our ground until we can get the truth and the facts out, and then all of this will be resolved. But even then, we're going to face major pushback from the media, and it's going to be very important that Fox News be the leading voice on telling the truth. And so I think if there's any conversation that happened with Barr and Murdoch that was of a serious nature of business or government or anything like that, I think it was probably that conversation. Maybe Barr just wanting to maybe tell Murdoch how important it is that he make sure that Fox News stay on the straight and narrow and not get sucked into the conspiracy theories, because the real criminal conspiracy is going to be uncovered, but it's taking some time. And I think that Barr just wants to make sure that Murdoch can feel perfectly confident in his organization by letting his main people, Carlson and Lou Dobbs and Sean Hannity and Ingram and all those, make sure that they can feel perfectly comfortable exposing the coup and the coup plotters and all those things, because they are going to be vindicated when his investigation is over. And so he may have wanted to give a little bit of confidence to Murdoch that he's on the right track with these people, but people like Shepard Smith, Neil Cavuto, and some of these others are on the wrong track. And I think that that's probably, my gut instinct is telling me that that's probably what was happening here. As far as how it relates to Shepard Smith, I just don't know. It's possible that there's something very embarrassing that Shepard Smith may have been involved in relates to the coup or something else, and maybe Barr was giving Murdoch a heads up. I just don't know. But I do think there's something there. I do think it's something important, something serious, but I think it has probably more to do with Barr wanting to talk to Murdoch about messaging and why it's important that he continue the messaging supporting the president, because Barr knows enough now to know whether or not this is true. So that's just my gut feeling. I could be wrong, but that's my gut feeling. Now, let's get on with some news of the day. We have Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, coming out and saying stay tuned for next week, because next week, he says, one of their most explosive videos ever is going to come out. And apparently they have gotten someone undercover at CNN. And apparently not just at CNN, but the focus on Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter, probably one of the dumbest people on cable news. So I'm sure that you'll want to stay tuned for that. I know I certainly will be. Looking forward to the Project Veritas undercover video of CNN with the focus on Brian Stelter. I'm thinking that's going to be a lot of fun. We have former Colonel, now private citizen, Tony Shaffer, coming out in an interview and saying it looks like to him that the intelligence communities are using the dark arts to target Trump. And he knows a lot about the dark arts because he practiced them for many years as an intelligence officer. So I know exactly what he's talking about. This is exactly what we've been talking about here on Towergate for a very long time. You can call these dark arts. You can call them whatever you want. They're plots and schemes, and that's exactly what we're looking at here. Tony Schaefer's right, and I think that this is what Barr and Durham are discovering now. You know, there's a reason why Durham told Barr that he wants to expand the investigation. He needs more lawyers, more prosecutors, more investigators, and more office space, and a bigger budget. So Durham, having been investigating this since May, and having spent all summer mostly in Europe and around other places outside the U.S. investigating this, obviously has discovered something, and enough to lead him to believe that there's a reason to dig in and really go at this, and he needs a lot more resources. And it looks like Barr has approved that, and so obviously something is going on. So more on this character, this Eric Ciaramella. We're now learning that this character, Eric Ciaramella, was Obama's director of Ukraine at the National Security Council, which means he would have been in and around the White House a lot, probably sitting in on meetings. His boss would have been Susan Rice. He would have been hanging around a lot at the UN with people like Victoria F. the EU Nuland, and would have been hanging out with people in the State Department as well, probably Jonathan Weiner and others. That puts him directly into the 2016 mob, and now, of course, he appears to be, if not the person who was the first source that gave the information to the so-called whistleblower, he's probably in that group. So, in addition to being Obama's director of the Ukraine at the NSC, and of course being the director of the Ukraine at the NSC would have put him in Biden's orbit too, because Biden was in charge of Ukraine. He's also believed to be close to the leaker, and maybe even was the source for the so-called whistleblower, or leaker as I call him. We know he went to Yale. That puts him in the private club. Whether or not he's skull and bones, I don't know, but he's in the club. He went to Yale. I'm sure we can find a lot of his classmates, probably like Bush and Kerry and others. Let's see, the Rotten Reverend. He also was at that dinner that we've been hearing a lot about with Matteo Renzi and Barack Obama, along with Biden, John F. and Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, the idiot James Clapper, Valerie Jarrett, and Get Back Loretta Lynch, as well as others from the Obama administration, were at this meeting that's a lot of people are suggesting may have been the meeting where they discussed with Matteo Renzi, the former PM of Italy, maybe when they discussed with him getting his cooperation in the plot to frame Trump. If you look at the timing and the people who were there and all the events that happened after that, there's reason to believe that this is maybe the dinner and the meeting with all these characters in play who were all in some way involved, may have been the meeting where Renzi was brought into the plot. And Mr. Ciaramella was there. Then, of course, you have the two Schiff aides who were talking to the NSC whistleblower and Mr. Ciaramella. They are all Obama holdovers, and they're all involved in the Ukraine whistleblower event. The scheme, the plot. Ciaramella is very close to Victoria F. the EU Nuland and Kathleen Kvalik. And how do we know that? Emails. Emails sent between the three of them. Ciaramella was involved in the loan guarantee negotiations with Ukraine. And of course, Joe Biden would have been involved in that because he was the point man for those negotiations. And we know that we're told that this so-called source and this whistleblower are both somehow connected to Biden. All of these individuals we just talked about have connections to Biden, and we're talking about Ciaramella here specifically, has connections to the Bidens, the Clinton Foundation, and the Atlantic Council, and they all have connections to each other. So I guess what's being outlined here is that it's possible that this guy Ciaramella may have either been the whistleblower, the so-called whistleblower, or he was the one who relayed the information to the so-called whistleblower. Somebody needs to pull Sierra Mello up in front of an open committee in Congress and ask him some questions, right along with that former UN ambassador. And that would be, I would be talking about Lindsey Graham. Believe it or not, Quid Pro Quo Joe is dumber than you even thought. Because now he is out there saying that China is a threat. Now, keep in mind, it was only 3 months ago that Quid Pro Quo Joe came out and said that China was not a threat. That was just 3 months ago. And now he's telling us that Trump is mishandling the situation with China and that China is a big threat. Now, just 3 months ago, he said the opposite. He's clearly losing his mind. Now, plus, if you're his political advisor, what you should be telling him right now, do not talk about Ukraine. Do not talk about China. Do not say the word China. Do not say the word Ukraine until this stuff blows over. Both of these things will bring up, when you say the word China or talk about China or Ukraine, the next question out of reporters' mouths are going to be, what about your situation there in China with your son? What about your situation there in Ukraine with your son? He needs to change the subject. He needs to talk about everything and anything except China and Ukraine. But here he is coming out making a statement, and we clearly have him on tape, on video. We have seen the video. It was done live. We've all seen the video, and I can expect tomorrow you're going to see this all over the internet. You're going to see these recent comments he's making that China is a threat, and you're going to see right after that the video where just 3 months ago he said that China was not a threat. Oh, come on, man. Come on, man. China? China? Boy, this guy's stupid. He is very, very stupid. So are the people that are advising him. They're probably the Rotten Reverends people. It's probably how the Rotten Reverend is going to take out Biden and Warren. She made sure to staff their campaigns with her people. That would be the Rotten Reverend. She clears the field, my friends. She clears the field. Papa don't suffer no mess, and the Rotten Reverend Clinton don't suffer no competition. Steve Bannon is doubling down, saying that the Rotten Reverend Clinton is trying to find a way to jump in the race. Yes, that's very good analysis. About 2 years late to the game, but very good analysis nonetheless. Bernie is holding a... Probably made a nice pop on the sound. Probably 2 pops now because pop makes a sound too. Okay, so Bernie is holding a... Sanders is holding a rally. Commie Bernie is holding a rally next week. That's not a very good move. I'm pretty sure his doctor is not advising that. Bernie needs to rest and take it easy. He needs to pull his hat out of the ring. He's not going to be the president. He's got plenty of money. Man, he needs to bail out. He needs to. He's 78 years old. He needs to retire, enjoy his retirement. He's got plenty of money. He's got a good pension from the Senate. He's very well taken care of. He can live out the rest of his life. He can write some books. He can still do some stuff politically, advance his cause. But trying to keep up with a grueling schedule and the stress involved in a campaign 2 weeks after you've had a heart attack is not good. You're pushing your luck. And I don't hate Bernie Sanders or anything. In fact, I'll say one thing for Bernie. He's a true believer. At least he really believes what he says. I disagree with him on 100% of probably what he says, or 99%. Maybe there's something I agree with him on. I just haven't heard it yet. But I don't wish any bad things for Bernie Sanders. I don't want to see the old guy go out there and have a heart attack and die. Giving a speech. I just don't want to see that. So I wish he would not do that. I wish he would take his doctor's advice. But for whatever reason, his campaign is saying that he is going to be having a rally. I can't imagine what's going on with his wife. You would think his wife would have said, no, that's it, shut it down. But she obviously hasn't. Well, we have the skateboarder out there now getting, I mean, it's almost like he'll say anything to get attention. And the things that he says are so freaking crazy that they're even too crazy for the radical left wing of the Democratic Party right now. And even if he was to somehow win and get all the most far left people in the country to come out in droves and vote for him, once he became the nominee, he would be defeated in all 50 states, probably by a landslide, that he would destroy the Democratic Party. And now he's saying that he wants to tax churches that don't allow same-sex marriage. Now, that's stupid to want to tax churches that don't allow same-sex marriage. That's just crazy. That's just really imposing on religious freedom, which is something he doesn't care about because he's, I think, probably an atheist anyway, which is fine. And it's not the tax issue, because I have for a very long time questioned why we have so many tax-exempt organizations, including churches. I have no problem with you being tax-exempt if you're doing charity. You should be tax-exempt if you're doing charity. But if you're actually a business posing as a charity, I'm not for that. So to the extent that a charitable organization is taking in money and distributing that money through charity, they should not be taxed. But if there are people running the charity who are making six-figure incomes, you have people profiting, making personal income, that's their jobs. They're not there to do charity work. They're there to do a job, and they're being paid. So people who are being paid money should be paying taxes. Money that's coming in, that's being turned right around and dispersed into charity, should not be taxed. So there's two issues here. One's a tax issue. The other is a religious freedom issue. And Beto would be incorrect on the religious freedom issue. And as far as the tax issue, I don't think he's smart enough to understand the difference between the two. He's kind of an idiot, in case you haven't figured that out. So yes, there's the skateboarder, Robert O'Rourke. Just, again, I think sometimes he thinks, I got to come out today and say the most outrageous thing I can possibly say to get some attention. It's the only thing I can think of. No rational, reasonable person in the right mind who is seriously trying to win an election would say these things. This is just dumb stuff, okay? And speaking of something that will just kind of make you want to go a little nutty, we're hearing news recently in the last 24, 48 hours. I've seen several stories on this. I tried to ignore it at first, but it won't go away. Is that Jeff Sessions, the Crimson Tide elf, who may have been involved in the coup plot, Jeff Sessions is considering running for his old Senate seat in Alabama. Now, that last exercise in selecting a senator in Alabama was a shit show, and it did not work out very well. And we certainly want to take that seat back. But not Jeff Sessions. There has got to be some sane, non-corrupt, decent, intelligent person in Alabama who can win that Senate seat, who supports Trump or supports his policies. Even if you don't support his personal style, at least his policies. Please, Alabama. Not Jeff Sessions, and neither are the last two jokers. Not that they're bad guys, it's just, I don't want to go back there. Let's get a fresh face, a solid, person, and let's take back that Senate seat in Alabama. But not with the Crimson Tide elf. Trump made this comment, he's taking a lot of heat for it, that Pelosi hates America. He shouldn't be taking heat for it because he's absolutely correct. Pelosi hates traditional America. What America was founded on and what we're trying to hold on to. She hates that. There's another type of America that she wants. She doesn't want this type of America because she does really hate it. That's the truth. I'm glad the president has the stones to come up and say it. Okay, we're out of time. I have a couple things here. We'll get to them tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. See you. Bye.